Now, to get the view of the inferior vena cava, you're going to go right below the sternum, and you're going to have your probe marker facing up towards the patient's head. We can see that this IVC is really thick, and the term for this is plethoric. It looks like a steel pipe, right? And so the only thing we can really say looking at this, without looking at anything else, is that there's a traffic jam, right? We have something that is stopping or slowing down the flow through the IVC into the right atrium. So we could say this patient has an elevated right atrial pressure, but we really don't know why. This could be a pneumo, pericardial tamponade, a pneumothorax. It could be a decrease in LV function, any of these things. We just see the on-ramp and we go, oh, there must be something that's clogging up traffic ahead. But we definitely know that this patient's probably not going to benefit from getting a little bit of fluid. We'll talk about one caveat to that, but they're typically not going to benefit from that. You may have a left ventricle that looks like if I gave that more fluid, it would eject more fluid, but the right ventricle is dilated out. It's huge. It's got a ton of residual volume in it at the end of systole. And the two main causes of that are going to be things like a PE, right? You get a clot up here inside the pulmonary artery, and then this right ventricle has this huge burden, this huge clot burden it's trying to pump blood past. Or you could have something like a right ventricular involved MI, where the right ventricle just completely loses inotropy. And so on ultrasound, you look and you see something like this, where you have this really big RV and an underfilled LV. It's contracting actually on itself. 100% ejection fraction. So we have a left ventricle that's fluid responsive and a right ventricle that would not tolerate any more fluid. So we'd have to actually increase the inotropy of the right ventricle with things like epi, maybe try to reduce the clot burden by giving TPA, pulmonary vasodilators. But we can't get volume to the left ventricle without going through the right ventricle. And that's why I have, is there evidence of right ventricular strain, or can the RV handle it, as part of my checklist? Now, these are two different IVCs, right? So this is probably the one that we would see in a patient with a PE, because everything's backing up. And if you see this, I just want you to say in your head, they have a high right atrial pressure. Don't try to assume what it's from. And then same with this. If you see a IVC that's real small, they have a low right atrial pressure. Some people will look at this and the patient will have gotten 4 or 5 liters of fluid, and they're like, oh, they need more fluid, and they're trying to fill this person up all the ways up to their IVC, when in reality, they need to add some Levophed. They need to add some more vascular tone. However, this patient is way more likely to respond to fluid, where this one is unlikely to respond to fluid. So it's kind of a secondary confirmation point after you look at the heart.